Hi everybody, I hope you can hear me. We're about to go live in 7 minutes. Please allow me some time to set everything up with Will, our speaker for tonight. Hi Will.
How's it going?
Good. We are live now. Just told everybody that I have to set things up with you, and then we'll go live in 6 minutes.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm ready. I'm back from the mountain at home, a little bit more sophisticated setting.
I can see you have the sponsors in the back. Nice touch.
Yeah, I have a nice lineup there,
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I have to show off a little bit too.
There we go. Great minds think alike. How do I make this thing full screen? Not that it's mega important, but
that's a good question, actually.
You've also just got it on like a little preview mode, right?
Yeah, it's preview for us, and everybody else will see it in full screen if they tap it full screen, if you understand.
Oh, that's okay then. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to grab you want to send me a little chat box?
Yeah.
Message. We get that going. I'm going to just grab some water.
If there are any live viewers, please send me a text message if you can in the public chat. Hoi Manuel. Hoi Edwin. Ook een berichtje van Rick. Hoi Rick.
Hello guys.
Cool, so the public chat is working. I just sent you a presenter chat, Will. If you can check it, you should have, it's in my upper right corner, in the double balloon. And you have the option of public chat and presenter chat.
Perfect, there we go.
Yeah, so that will be our, how do you call it, our private hotline, so to speak.
We went private, Cool. Yeah, cool. I'm glad we decided to check that out now before. So that's all systems go. We're ready.
Yeah. So let's wait a couple more minutes. I see the number of viewers is going up. We're already at 9 persons. So at the end, 26 registered. So hopefully we have a couple more viewers. And I do know that some people already told me that they could not make it and they will watch the replay. Which, by the way, for everybody who's watching now, the replay will be available from tomorrow. You will get an email with a link, and then you can, watch the replay.
Nice and simple.
Too easy.
Cool. Yeah. So we can even just keep it nice and casual at the beginning while people are pouring in. Even if some people might find themselves a couple of minutes late, that's all cool. We can take some time to slowly get into it,
Yeah, cool.
Have you been jumping recently?
I think 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Nice.
But the most restrictions got, like, you could skydive, but only with, I think, like 7 or 8 persons in a Grand Caravan. And just recently, last week, the the control measures got lifted. So now it's almost as usual. You need some drop zones, you need gloves or buffs or whatever. Belgium is has still a lot of restrictions during the flight. But,
okay.
How about yourself? Is Empuria, is it open or?
Yeah, we've been open since I think the 22nd of June. And it didn't really change too much in terms of the capacity of the aircraft. Like the Spanish Skydiving Federation worked very closely to the management of Empuria Brava and 1 or 2 other DZs. Really, that basically is our federation, like the core group of drop zones and operations. So that was a pretty smart thing that they did. They kind of presented how they can open up before let's say the government decided on something that wouldn't be necessarily so coherent with the sport. So that started up pretty similar to how it finished before we went into confinement in terms of the operational side. But then, of course, like people being able to travel and stuff like that, that's still been a little bit different, let's say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been jumping. And then also it's definitely been my first summer in like a long time that I have some flexibility, which is not necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah.
Chasing myself around the world for years and years on end. Now all of a sudden, like things are a little bit more chilled out for this year, and that's actually been really good.
So I'm not sure if you saw the message that Ron left at the artistic corner on Facebook that the World Cup indoor is postponed again. The one from October.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just got it. I just got it like seconds before I opened the webinar. So that's
okay.
Well, makes sense. I think it's a smart decision, but
yeah,
it's a shame. But
yeah. I mean, I think at the time when that decision was made, it was April, and we thought, obviously by October or November, whenever it was scheduled for, things would be fine. And now we're like creeping closer towards the end of the year, really. And you're like, okay, let's see where things go. I think that's a smart decision, like once again, everybody's been chasing themselves and everything else around the world for so long, and this is a year where things are slightly different. And if you want positive to come out of it, I believe you can get that.
Oh, so I see a chat from Ron. Thank you, Ron, for clearing this up, clarifying. It's skipped, not postponed. So skip a year. Well, thank you for clarifying. So looking at the clock, it's 19:30. So we are about to start. I'll do a quick introduction. Well, our main speaker for tonight will be Will Penny. Hi, Will.
Hello, everybody.
I tried to look up how many World Championships, World Cups you won, but I sort of lost count. I know you were born in South Africa, you live in Spain, and you jump for the French national team. Is that correct?
Yes, pretty much. I'm not in the French team anymore. I stopped competing with them in 2016. But yes, that has been the only nation I've represented in a FAI sanctioned competition.
Cool. Thank you very much. In the meantime, I switched to you so people can see your pretty face now. And I want to give you the floor. Will, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, well, I just wanted to say hello, first of all. And thank you guys for having me this evening. It's a really nice way that we can keep in touch and we can share our common passion and learning in a virtual space, and I think this is going to become more and more of a thing in the future. And the past few months have definitely made us a little bit more aware of how we can keep up with our, let's say, normal social interaction, but through a virtual kind of a portal. So once again, yeah, thank you guys. I'm looking forward to see what comes out of this evening's chat. So is there anything in particular you would like me to start with, or has anyone got some questions they want to drop out there? Hello, everybody. Once again, I see there's some chat going on here. I'm going to try to focus on the chat with Benny, but I can keep it rolling here. You mentioned it was difficult to find some of my accomplishments in skydiving competition. I actually just have one World Championship title and 2 World Cup titles and a World Air Games title. And then there's some European and national championships and titles there. But when you start competing, for sure, you realize the difference, at least in prestige, between a World Cup and a championship. And I think it's pretty fair to say that anybody who's competing in the sport of skydiving, if it be indoor or outdoor, you really are chasing the world championship. Even though the competitions are pretty much identical, like a World Cup to a World Championship year, it's just determined really by if it's what we call on or off year. But everyone is focusing on the championship title, and then it's obviously quite different from something like football, right? Where football would be that they don't really have a championship; they have a World Cup. So, yeah, just one World Championship title there. Yeah, do you guys want to throw some questions my way, or I'm not sure how you would like me to keep on chatting.
Yeah, for the participants, for the viewers, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. I will be looking at the chat all of the time. So if Will start jabbing about something else, I'll make sure that he gets the topics that you provide.
I see a very intriguing question here from Dan, and he is saying, "Do you also think FS4 is the new dynamic?" Of course. When you have the boys like Hayabusa in the game, it doesn't get much more dynamic than that, you know. Huge respect for the FS ladies and gentlemen in the sport. I do think there's a little bit of belly flyer inside of all of us. I love it, and I did actually flirt with the idea of doing it a little bit, but let's see, maybe in my next lifetime.
So Ron, in the meantime, asked if like people could introduce themselves in the chat. I suggest, well, let's keep that in the chat. And Will, maybe you have, maybe you can tell us like how do you train? Like, do you do training weeks? Do you do coached weeks or locations? Like, yeah, like in general, the way to your championship or to your competition.
That's a really interesting question that I could definitely speak quite a bit about. How do you train? I think that the way that you train is gonna lay the foundation for how you compete. So it's pretty fair to say, right? Like all of the training you do is building up. If you're training for competition, is building up towards a competition. So the better you can focus on getting a good planning done and being, you already mentioned, in the right place with the right people and having that structured in your calendar year, the more success you're going to have overall. And for me, the training is actually the rewarding part of competing. Like, so how do you do that? Like for myself, like I've been in a few teams now.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I have lost you guys.
Oh,
wait a minute.
I can still hear you.
Something popped up and I lost you guys, but there we go. Yeah, so I've been in a couple teams now, and I've also been very fortunate to be around very experienced people who taught me how to train. And I think Empuria Brava has got some beautiful magnetic force of pulling very passionate and driven people who spend a lot of time close to each other. So there's a lot of synergy there, and the training, let's say, ethos here is really strong. Even for a lot of the guys who not necessarily competing, there's people who are always continuously pushing themselves. So how did I train? I trained in several ways. The first time I was chasing a title was in 2012 with Cathy and Nini Bouet. We were a part of Babylon Free Fly at that time. And I faced a little bit of a crossroads or a junction in my career, let's say, where I was working full-time in the sport, mostly working for the drop zone and doing free fly coaching. And then this moment and team arose, and we decided we were going to do everything we could do to push as hard as we can to arrive at the Mondial in Dubai in 2012. It was a very ambitious task because we were a new team, regardless of the fact that we'd all had skydiving experience. Cathy was already a world champion at the time, so that was a massive contribution. And then we had Steph Fardell and Nico as our coach. So we decided we were going to go all in and do everything we had to do to represent ourselves and the school and the country at the Mondial. So we pretty much went from like June until December. The competition was really late into almost full-time training. We had the drop zone. Skydiving in Puerto Bravo was a massive support for us. They gave us, I think it was 700 jumps, in the three-way. So that's like, 2,100 jumps in terms of slots and the pack-in. And that's when I really made my first steps in the tunnel too, like pushing in the tunnel. So it was a bit of a tricky time because it was such a full immersion in the task. It was very, very consuming. And with inside of that, we'd have like a 10-day or a week to 10-day on, and then a couple of days off, maybe a week or so, do some work, etc., and then go back into training. So that was a very interesting way to do it, and tons was learned from that. And we also ended up winning the French nationals. We went against the Team Crystal with Domi Kiga, Matt Hill, and Nico Goutin, and they were already the World Cup champions. So we beat them in nationals, and then we came back to Empuria and redid our routine, and then we faced them in the Mondial, and we ended up getting a bronze medal, and Crystal won. So it was a very interesting year, having a really rad battle throughout the year. So that was one way that we did it, was full immersion. It was very consuming. I was absolutely exhausted at the end of the year, mentally and emotionally too. And then from 2013, I joined the team, still with underneath the French Federation with Johan Abbey, and we had a little bit more of a midterm, almost let's say mid to long-term plan for the team. So we could do things, let's say, a little bit more in the way that I would like to train now, and that pretty much became like a week to 2 weeks per month that we were training starting from spring. And then that was traveling to France to train, and then we got another sponsorship from Empuria Bravo, so we were training here a lot. And then as our team started to build up, by the end of it, we were pretty much in training 2 weeks of every month, 1 week in skydiving and 1 week in the tunnel, more or less. And that was really, really rad. Again, very consuming, a lot of energy, which is tremendously rewarding, but at the same time can be tiring. So ideally, like, I would always be in a state of training even now. And if I were to do that absolutely perfectly, I would be a full-time athlete, full-time competitor with a massive salary from one of our sponsors. So a man can dream. And then I would do the same thing. I would train for 2 weeks. I would have 1 week on skydiving and a bit of tunnel, 1 week off, and that could be to do other things, fitness or other sports or other type of training, and then keep that ball rolling. So that would be my ideal script to design a training program right now.
Cool, thank you. In the meantime, some questions popped up in the chat, which I also sent to you in the presenter chat. The first one was Amalus, and well, she actually did two questions. What makes a good trainer coach in your opinion, and what makes a good training?
What makes a good trainer coach in your opinion? That's another really fascinating question. I think along the journey of competing, I've also continued to get coaching, and that hasn't really stopped in my life as a skydiver. So I think a great coach is someone who can really listen. I think that's a tremendous quality, and somebody who is a student themselves, right? That's for me, so the first two things that really pop up. Like, imagine the fact, if I'm your coach and I am not training myself in some capacity, then essentially you're teaching to your students that you can arrive at a moment in the sport where it's okay, you don't need to keep on training yourself. So I think the people who are standouts, they're continuously pushing themselves to be better as a coach, to be better as a trainer. And even if that's potentially not being incredibly active in the sport, but they're working on their training techniques, they're studying on the side, and they're looking how they can continuously improve their own skill set to give you more. And yeah, I think somebody that can identify your weak points and bring them out in a way that makes you realize that they need work, but at the same time keeping the training interesting. And it should be hard because you're chasing something that's not easy to achieve, but at the same time, like, there needs to be a lot of fun in there. So I think your coach is absolutely fundamental part of the team. And as I've continuously gotten coaching and I have some really important mentors for me, this helps me to continuously take things from them and then adapt them to my own style and try to evolve my teaching all the time. So it's pretty much like just a different level of being a student. That's what makes a good coach.
And her next question, thank you, Will. And her next question was, what for you makes a good training?
What makes a good training is time and resources. Our sport is usually quite a precarious balance between having the budget to train as much as you want and having the time. Sometimes we don't get both of those ingredients. So a good training for me would be that you're focused, and let's say you have a 10-day period to achieve 7 days of jumping, which is somewhat realistic with weather and a bit of life issues thrown in the mix there. And then unlimited budget is always pretty cool. If you can jump and just focus on your performance. So you're jumping, you're getting pack jobs, you have somebody to prepare food for you, have a physio on the side, and you have a tunnel close by, and you have a coach. Life is good. That's like the perfect training. And funnily enough, we pretty much achieved that in the French team. So that's definitely a great reference for me. I learned a lot about competition and training from the French Federation, and that's something that I truly value, because even when I was really young, I was looking at the French teams, and I always felt that these guys have got something like really smart going on, in the fact that they pretty much win everything all the time. So something is working there. And as I got into the team, once again, it was a huge privilege and honor to get into the team. And I looked at the whole setup and I was like, okay, this is quite fascinating, because the people who were in charge of the coaches, who were in charge of the disciplines, who had other coaches training the teams, they had been several times world champion, like many years before. So we've got, in the French Federation, you've got a couple generations of competitive skydivers' knowledge that's just being passed down, and then you're just adapting it to your certain style or to your moment in the sport, let's say.
Cool. Thanks, Will. So we have a question from Ron that's more of a newbie question. If you could elaborate a little bit on new teams, where to start, how do you make your routine ideas? You start technically, how much integration with the tunnel for your outdoor training? Yeah, where to start?
Yeah, it's a newbie team. That's also like a really interesting stage, right? I think as a new team, the most important thing that you need to do is to start. It sounds incredibly simple, but I think sometimes people have a lot of high hopes and dreams about achieving something, and then perhaps they don't necessarily get the ball rolling in the right way. And perhaps that's the question that's being asked here. Like, the biggest advice I can give for a new team is to get coaching, because if I never had the coaching that I had in the beginning of my competitive moment in the sport, I would never have achieved the things I did now. I would have wasted a lot of time and wasted a lot of money, basically. So definitely you need to get some guidance from somebody, and there ends up being a few people in each discipline that it makes sense that you at least get close to. Doesn't mean you need to have that contact, that type of, let's say, intimate contact with them being present in your training all the time, but at least to give you a game plan. So there's a bunch of really awesome coaches out there who can help you to start your training program and give you even like a timeline over the period that you choose to train. So your routine ideas, I always remember Johan Abbey's wise words, where he had a little piece of paper and a pen next to his bed, and he would wake up at 3 a.m. and write it down. So it's a cool sport. the artistic events, at least that's what I'm talking about this evening, where there's a very interesting balance between the technical and the creative side of the flying, right? So the creativity is only limited to your imagination, and then you need to find out the right technique, how to achieve that creativity. So sometimes you can put a team together that perhaps everybody's already has a high technical flying level, and then you just have to focus on the creative side, that's a pretty rad place to be. And then sometimes also you'll get teams that really need to pick up their own skill set, their own technical level, or maybe one of the flyers, etc., etc. So then that's got to build up parallel, right, with the creativity and the technical side of it. How much do you integrate tunnel into your outdoor training? Like, I never forget Vince Raffet said to me when he was competing for Babylon that it's pretty simple, like, because they were one of the first free flight teams to train with Fabian Rydell back in the day, train tunnel flying for the use of skydiving in free fly. And Vince very clearly said to me, there's not enough time in your lifetime to do as many skydives as you need to do to achieve that same amount of body flying. So how important is it to put tunnel flying in your outdoor training? I think it's absolutely imperative, especially to pick up your personal technique and to understand a little bit better about your body awareness and what you're doing. And then you need to learn how to translate those skills into the sky.
Cool, thank you very much. Another question from Fanny. Which aspect or element has given you the most or the right fight to excel more, like training-wise, in your trainings?
The human element, without a doubt. Like, it's all about people, right? It's a team. There was a stage when myself and Yo were training like obsessed. We spent more time together than we did with our partners, so that's a lot of time, and it's a pretty big commitment, and you're traveling around the world together, you're eating the same things, and you're often sharing the same room. So there's a lot of time spent there. So there's obviously an incredible bond that you make, but if you don't feel the vibe with that person, you're probably not going to like have that chemistry in the sky. So like, choose your teammates wisely. And often you'll have the feeling that they chose you, like it just really works. So I think, as we are just animals on this planet, we can train ourselves to do pretty much anything. But if you don't have a rad chemistry and you don't really get on with someone from the beginning, it's going to be a difficult thing to push just for a professional or a sporting relationship. So the most important thing there is finding the right teammates and make it cool, work hard, train hard, but keep it light and have some fun at the same time.
Thanks. Next question is from Dan, which is fortunately enough my own teammate. So I'm happy, Dan, that you are the human part in our team. What do you think is a classic mistake teams make in their training and competition? What do you wish you knew early in their competitive career?
Wow, that's a very good question. What is the classic mistake teams make in their training is not to get coaching. Like, I cannot say that enough. And I don't want anybody to think that because I'm a professional coach that's why I say that. It's you're just asking me now, and so I'm giving you my opinion. But like, I often make this analogy. Like, most of the people in this chat have some contact with dynamic flying in the tunnel, whether it be two-way or four-way. So imagine you went online and you decided that you were going to learn the dive pull of dynamic four-way just on your own, walking it on the ground, and you never got coaching. Like, it's a pretty huge deal, and I think everyone can very easily realize that almost is kind of bordering on being impossible. But because we have a certain skill set that we bring to the sky, and we're all free flying in the bigger sense of the word, or freestyling, that a lot of the times people might think that we can just put these people together and go for it. And of course you can, but there's so many subtleties in those disciplines and in training and in skydiving in general that, like, you don't need to do the work that 3 generations did before you. So like you can just really accelerate your progression and your fun factor and your performance by investing in coaching. And like this is something that you will eventually realize, so you could spend a few years together just charging hard and perhaps being frustrated with your results, and then at some point you're going to say, Rad, let's get a coach on board, and you're going to see your team transform completely. So, and early in your what do you wish you knew early in your competitive career? Wow, I don't actually have an answer for that. I'm trying to think of the first thing that comes to mind. What do I wish I had known is that it's never going to be enough. Like you're never going to arrive there neither, I think that's also another classic human trait, is that at least probably most people on this chat are some type of overachiever or have a lot of ambition or drive. So what I thought that perhaps once you won a competition, that would be enough and you'd be cool. And that just is not really the case. You can just keep on going, and you're never going to be as good as you really want to be. Like if you are training for competitions because you want to get better and you really want to achieve something inside of yourself. So at least that was my case. And I thought that it would kind of reach a point where I was like really happy with it and that was enough. But at some point I just chose that I needed to take a little bit of a detour, and now possibly going back into competition actually. But I think, that you're never really going to be arriving to where you set out to be, even if it means that you win a world championship or a world title. You're just going to want more and more and more.
Thanks. I'm going to sneak in a little question of myself, which is related. How many, like most team are obviously on a budget. What percentage would you advise of the amount of coached jumps based on their like total amount of jumps that they would make in a year?
I mean, what I would advise is 100%. And then you need to work within some reason of that. But again, like I think Dan touched on asked the question, a very similar question, but in a way that resonates with me a little bit clearer, is that I think in the beginning, you should really invest there because, again, like just laying down like a training plan and the mental side of the sport, which is becoming way more interesting for me as time's going on. I think like in the beginning of the team, it's way better if you have a budget of, let's say, 200 jumps, and the fact that you're going to do your first 3 trainings would mean that you end up achieving 100 team training jumps, but they guided. Like that information you're going to take with you for the rest of your team and the rest of your team's life and the rest of your own personal training. So I think in the beginning, it's absolutely fundamental, especially your first 1 to 3 trainings, like, again, because then you've been pointed in a direction, you've been shown a certain way, and everything from that point forward, with or without the coach, is building on that. So you can kind of read into that as much as you want, but I think percentage-wise, it should be a priority. And pack jobs. You don't want to pack. It's a waste of energy.
Cool. I think that Manuel has a similar question. What would your priority be to train for if your budget was limited?
What would your priority be? I need a little bit more clarification on that question.
I think what he means is like if you have a budget, what should you prioritize? Like a more expensive location or a coach or?
Yeah, I would say if you have a limited budget, which is very real, let's put it out there. Like I would focus on training myself. Like getting your own skill sets higher and learning more. And that was, again, some really incredible advice I got as a very young skydiver who was hungry, keen, and eager. Was actually Filippo Fabi, I never forget, he turned around to me and said one day, like, you just keep on training yourself, and then one day you're going to find someone else who's just been training themselves, and then you go for it. So if you have limited resources, try to focus on your own skill set, and in that same kind of bubble, two ways. Like if you want to get the most out of your skydiving, jump in a two-way, because when you have one other reference in the sky, it becomes incredibly simple to process a lot of information, and it's almost irrelevant of the compatibility of skill set in a two-way, because things just really make sense. So if you don't have a massive budget, you want to get better, if you can jump with somebody who's better than you in a two-way, amazing. If you can jump with someone who's got the same skill as you, can be amazing too. And if you can jump with someone who's got a slightly lower level than you, it can be tremendously beneficial for you too, because you have to really look at what's actually going on. So to answer your question with a pretty long answer, two ways, and work on yourself.
Thank you very much. Next question is by Rick. He actually has two questions. What would be good ground activities to stimulate team performance? And what's your opinion on switching between coaches or stick to one coach?
What good ground activities to keep the performance? Yeah, I think that kind of the first thing that makes me think about is the human dynamic, you know? So I was training a team a couple of years ago, and they were just about to go to the World Championships, and I could feel that there was a slight bit of insecurity with their mental training. So like we were pretty ready for the competition, and I just decided that this day, weather was perfect. We had a really great budget, but I decided that this day we were going to take the day off skydiving and just work on the mental preparation and the psychological part of managing yourself, and a bit of a strategy to how you can perform at the competition. So I think like that's kind of the extreme case of that, but what type of activities you can do to increase the dynamic and the performance is really work on the human relationship there. Try to really be super open with each other, speak about your dreams, about your hopes, even about your insecurities within the team. And a lot of those things will become somewhat symbolic for how that person is in real life. So the better you can understand your teammate, that might be from doing some other sport together. You know, it depends on what you guys like to do or where you are in the world, but any type of other sports, like the cross training, can be really good. Obviously, if we're talking about skydiving, tunnel is the first one that comes to mind. And then even silly things like what you think is silly, but go bowling together and do a little go-karting, or like wake up in the morning and go for a swim on the beach, or go to the gym together. Those type of things can be really interesting. Did I answer the whole question, or was there some other part of it there?
Yeah, that was the first part, and the second part was what's your opinion on switching between coaches or sticking to one coach? And I can imagine for artistic events that some people would think about, I have a coach for the routine and I have a coach for the compulsories.
Perhaps, yeah. Like I actually really like that question. It's a super nice question to be asked, because I think that you can almost get like saturated from one coach, you know, like sometimes you're going to learn like tremendous amount from somebody, and there's going to be almost no limitation to what you can take from them, let's say, or what they can give you, is a slightly better way to put it. But at the same time, like, it's also really good to be told the same thing in a different way, with a different body language or different words. So I think there is tremendous value in both, you know. So I would kind of suggest that you can start with one, and then perhaps do a follow-up with that, and then that's probably going to be tremendous anyway. It almost doesn't matter who that is. And then over time, you know, you might see that, wow, that's tremendously useful, but let's try fly with somebody else, and like that's also going to be really good. So maybe not like chopping and changing like one day to the next, rather do it in camps, you know. And like, you know, in the end, the most valuable thing that we're going to get from the interaction with the coach is time. So for me, that time is somewhat irrelevant in terms of what activity we're doing. So there's a lot of time where I'm traveling with some of my students around the world, and we're engaging in some type of mental stimulation towards the flying or on the human dynamic side, excuse me, even without flying. So time spent with the coach is going to be really valuable. So, excuse me. So like if you spend like, let's say your first 2 or 3 trainings with one coach and you see that that's rad, you've given yourselves time to get to know them and them to get to know you. And then obviously like it's totally cool. And I actually suggest sometimes very useful to change coaches.
Thank you, Will. Next questions. Well, I think I will combine them. Is by Fanny and Edwin. Fanny asks, how do you prepare in the week before the competition? And Edwin asks, what works well for you to focus during the competition itself?
Wow, you guys are asking some really cool questions. It seems like there's a lot of competitors in this group, which is rad, because those are very competitively orientated questions. The week before the competition, there is nothing you can do. It's done. You know, you're not going to do miracles. So for us, once again, I believe to have trained in a really fortunate way and had tremendously great coaches around me who showed me these tricks, let's say. And 1 week before competition, we weren't skydiving. That's done. Like our training would finish probably 10 days or a week before our departure, because very seldom you're going to have a competition at your home drop zone. You have to travel most of the time abroad. So let's say competition was at the end of August. By like the 23rd or something of August, you do your last training jump. Then the team would go home, sort out their stuff at home, and then start to travel to the competition. So like trying to race at the end is just going to make you stressed and worried, because all of that should be taken care of. I know there's some teams who have a slightly different strategy. I know there's some teams who save their competition by like their last week of training, but they'll also tell you that's not ideal. So I would suggest to be like so well structured throughout the year that your last week before the competition, you rest your mind, you rest your body, you focus on your family affairs, and you start getting ready for your trip, and then you start gearing up into that competition mode. There was one, the second half of the question. I don't see it here.
Yeah, that would be what works well for you to focus during the competition.
Very, very cool question. When I was in the French team, we were working with a sports psychologist who did some studies on each of us, and they would give us some feedback as to how we react in a high stress environment. So I got some really cool feedback that without a doubt was a super important for me in my behavior at competition. So what works well for me, I can tell you more the things that don't work well for me, like noise brings up my anxiety apparently when I'm in a potentially high stress environment. So people like making a lot of noise or a big hanger. So then that translates to isolation, Bose, noise canceling, something like that. And also not sitting still for too long. That apparently brings up my anxiety also in a high stress environment. So the sports psychologist suggested that I watch something or on my computer, or I read something or listen to music. And then also if I'm sitting down or like waiting, because there's a lot of waiting in competition, it's like the slowest moving thing ever, and that's the hard part really, because you wake up in the morning and straight away you wake up at whatever time might be, probably early because you're on it in your head. And then you just got to be ready to go from, at least in your mind, from 6 in the morning until 8 at night, and that's tremendously taxing on your energy, So these little tricks of trying to identify the things that make you feel more chilled out and don't pick up your anxiety can be really, really useful.
So I have another question for myself, which is related. So how do you get, can I say, pumped up for the jump itself? Because I really know the feeling that you're talking about. You're waiting on the DZ for the entire day, especially there might be some bad weather or something coming in, and at once, or not at once, you get an early warning, but then you have to go for it again while your body is in full relax mode, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was ever in full relaxed mode. I was trying to like just keep it chilled, but yeah, I mean, the competition for me was never really like such an amazing environment in terms of me being at peace. You know, it was trying to find the challenge of being mentally engaged, but being chilled. So never really being chilled. Let's say, I'm using the word a million times, but you get the point. But I got that from music. Like I had one or two tracks on my phone that would get me pumped up, and I actually had one song that I listened to like 4 years in a row, about 600 times a day before I went up and did my jump. So like I would go like, okay, rad, this is the moment. Now we're on like a half an hour call or longer, and I would play the song 3 or 4 times, and then okay, that's done. Then I start getting my gear ready, and I always found that the waiting dragged out forever. It felt like a lifetime. And then when it was even, you got like a 45-minute call or artistics is starting now, then the time just went by super quick. So as soon as I had taken my headphones off and I was starting to get my gear and then do turf dives, then the next thing I knew, I was pretty much back on the ground. That moment was pretty interesting moment in terms of time perception.
So Annaluz is asking the real question here. Which song was that?
It was I forget the name of the band, but I will find it for you. It's no, it's just gone out of my mind. Like I could hear it before, and now that I got asked the question, I've gone completely blank. But I will post it. It's yes, no, it's gone. Sorry.
No
Funny
worries.
that's crazy.
All right. I have one more question for myself. When you're like creating your routine, do you aim for something that you already can do and try to do it as good as perfectly as you can, or do you raise the bar and do something that you haven't done before?
Another great question. I think it depends on the level of the team. But for sure, I would definitely advise that you do what you can do really, really well, really nicely, consistently, that you can fly that routine in your sleep before you try to learn new things. Because I think like a lot of the time, perhaps people underestimate how difficult it is just to fly simple routine really well, really clean. And that means like when we're speaking about the team, I'm speaking about everything about the performance and the camera flyer, you know. So I really suggest in the beginning that you perhaps reduce a little bit of your technical expectations and just absolutely nail it on the performance time and time again. Work on cleaning up the position and picking up your technical level along the way, and then you're going to get some confidence with that. And then of course you have the freedom to push yourself and the discipline and try something new. And I think too, like maybe at the moment when you've achieved your objective, like let's say you set out to become a national champion and you achieve that through a simple routine, like with a really good execution, then perhaps after that you can go, wow, that's rad, we've done that. Now we're going to take a little bit more risk, you know, and that's something that I did. And we knew that at some point it wouldn't even work anymore, but we wanted to do our best to push the discipline and show the potential there. So there was a risk we were totally willing to take with absolutely no regrets.
Cool, thanks. So another question by Rick. What's the most unexpected thing that mattered mostly to you during, well, either training or competition?
What's the most unexpected thing that mattered? I think like having everything like absolutely perfect. Like simple things for me, like which is kind of how I am as a skydiver. So, for example, like making sure that all of my equipment was in the best condition it could be, and I had everything all the time with me. You know, like something like forgetting a glove can totally throw me off. You know, or like I get in the plane. I always use earplugs in the plane, and I get in the plane. And I realized I just have one earplug, like that could totally throw me off, you know. Not that I would freak out and like lose competition about it, but like if that's the way that I train and that's the way that I skydive, so having everything like completely perfect makes me feel that in my mind I'm totally prepared and everything's perfect. So for sure, if I train like that in competition, I would just check and double check, you know, in the morning that I have like my cameras are charged, that I have my SD cards ready, that I have the same socks, that I have my earplugs ready, I have my gloves, I have a spare pair of gloves just in case, you know, those type of things, like just being really meticulous with the preparation on the physical side. And that became really important for me, and still is actually.
So did you ever have like something happening during the competition itself, like that? Well, either you were in the plane and you didn't wear matching socks, or you forgot your SD card or whatever.
Yeah, of course. I think it was 2014. We were in Dubai at the DIPC, the competition that they used to put on there, and we'd spent the whole day on the ground. It was raining, you know. Everyone says it doesn't rain in Dubai. I've been there a bunch of times, and it's always rained. But anyway, it was raining the whole day. We were on standby, and then we went up to do a jump, and then it got clouded over, so we landed again. And then it was, I mean, this is getting now towards the evening, you know, so they put us on a short call to go up again. We went up again. There was some cloud. It was beautiful. And literally, I think like 20 seconds into the routine, my camera just shut down. Yeah, I mean, it was the Sony camera with the optical stabilizer, and never happened to me before in like training for like 2 years that I was using the camera. And then Murphy's Law, like in a competition, the camera shut down, and that was pretty awkward because I had like the hyper thing, that indicator, and then under canopy it was not red, and I was like, that's pretty weird. So I actually took my helmet off under canopy. Don't advise this, don't do this. Took it off under canopy and just tried to make sure, like I was watching the video and like it cut off, and I was like, oh no, not good. And then I had to explain this to Yo, you know, he wasn't very stoked. But funnily enough, we actually had an outside video filming us on that particular jump. And when I landed, I went straight to the judges and the judging panel and said to them, this is what's happened. I literally came off a boat, because you would land on the palm and a boat would bring you back. And then I said, please look at my system, like my battery's full and my SD card it has more than enough space on it. It was just like a 1 in a million camera malfunction. And on top of it, there's someone filming outside. And so I didn't turn the camera off. And there was no reason. We were winning the competition at that stage. And then we got a rejump, but that was like not so cool. Yeah, like, I mean, why would that happen the one time, you know, like in round 4 in competition? And then some other stuff that happened is, some mistakes in free fall, you know, like one moment being a little bit longer than it needed to be, or an extra move thrown in there happened a couple of times, but you just got to deal with it, you know. You just got to keep on flying, keep the ball rolling.
Always keep them guessing.
Exactly.
Cool, thanks. We have one more question from Fanny. Do you have a ritual with your team, and why that particular ritual?
A ritual, like, yeah, of course. I mean, because it, again, like for me, the most important thing that I learned very quickly in competition was the human side. So much like any relationship, you know, like if you go and hang out with your parents or your family members, brothers or sisters, you'd probably like meet up and then you'd go to your favorite place for coffee or go to your favorite restaurant that you've been going to a few times, or, you know, do things like that. So in the teams that I've been involved in, yeah, we definitely end up building some rituals. If it's going to a favorite restaurant, or we also took it like pretty seriously, where we didn't really like go out or do any like socializing when we were training. Take a break from any type of alcohol or anything related to that. So we'd have a little ritual. Yeah, on the last night we'd go out for a dinner or cook at home and have a bottle of wine and have a laugh or something like that. You know, that became our little ritual, stuff like that. You know, pretty simple things that just you would do in a normal kind of relationship. I'm still trying to think of the song, and I can't believe I forgot. I've just gone completely blank. You know, it's insane. I must have listened to that song like 5,000 times, but I'll put it out of my head for now.
Yeah, I think Dan has it for you. He says "Mbop" by Hanson.
How did you know, Dan? You're reading my mind.
Cool. So I'm looking at the chat if there are any more questions. We had a couple of more minutes left. So if anybody has questions, feel free to shoot.
Yeah, well, I can just take the floor for a little bit. Yeah, it's been very interesting speaking to you guys so far because of the level of questions that have been asked are very stimulating, and that gives me a little bit of insight as to who I'm seeing on the other side of the screen, which is just myself at this point, but who is on the other side of this webinar. If I can give you guys any type of encouragement, it's keep that mindset that you have. These type of questions are the questions that you need to ask for yourself, and you need to try to find the answers to. And the more and more I'm engaged in the sport, the more I value the human relationships, because I think they're absolutely fundamental. And at the same time, the mental training. Like, I believe that the physical training in some way is it's completely driven by your mind, you know. So the more you can engage in a great mental preparation and training and trying to understand yourself better and trying to be sensitive to the moments of your teammates or the students that you guys are working with, that's the most important part of the sport. And it's definitely, over the past few years, it's been a place where I've really put a lot of my energy towards, is at least to try to understand my own mindset and get into the minds of people, because you end up spending quite a bit of time with people. Like, if I'm training somebody, perhaps we'll do, on a good day, 10 jumps a day. That translates to not even, let's say, 10 minutes in free fall, but we're spending 23 hours and 50 minutes being prepared for those 10 minutes. So there's a lot of time there where it could be on your way to the drop zone, could be that you go out for dinner together, or it could be a little moment somewhere you've arrived at the airport together, whatever the case might be. But getting into people's minds and trying to understand who they are and where they come from can make the biggest difference to your team dynamic and your own learning.
Thanks again. I have a question from Rick. I'm not sure what he means, but maybe you get it. He said, how would you Moneyball skydiving?
What do you mean Moneyball? I've seen the film, but I don't really understand.
Rick, can you explain that in the chat, please?
Moneyball. I think it's a film with Jonah Hill, right? He's a baseball. Is it baseball? I think I watched it actually not so long ago.
All right, so Rick is actually at the restroom. Let's do Alberta's question first. Do you have some kind of handshake just before the exit, or do you focus on yourself?
Like I imagine this is being kind of directed to competition. Do I have a handshake? Yeah, of course. Like, definitely. Like with your team, that's a big one. You know, I mean, you'll end up doing it a couple thousand times if you guys jump together enough. And yeah, the shake is important. You know, the shake. I mean, there's some. Rob Heron did a fantastic like webinar, well, actually a live presentation about that last year, and that's a whole topic, you know. But in competition, it's that last moment when you have the physical touch, hopefully for the last moment, at least in freestyle, and then from that point on, like it's a different stage of the jump, right? That's like the last pre-jump stage, transitioning into the jump stage. So yes, definitely get a rad shake that has some symbolic meaning between you and your teammates, and look at each other in the eyes when you do that, just like we like to do in Europe when we cheers each other. You look at each other in the eyes.
So in the meantime, thanks, Will. In the meantime, Rick answered the question. Moneyball, as in the Oakland A's, which I think is a baseball team, that had a very limited budget and used data to improve their team performance.
Well, no, this is one of the best questions that's been asked tonight. Yes, now I remember the film really, really clearly. This is uncharted territory in skydiving. But at the same time, the pool is a lot smaller. You know, like I think if I try to directly translate the Moneyball concept into skydiving, which I did when I was watching the film, it's really great on paper, but you dealing with like, I don't know, like what's the percentage less, but a lot less people who are engaging in our sport than there are in baseball. But with the data, that is something we are just touching on. Like that's just about a start, you know. So I think we can truly answer that question in a couple of years' time when we've integrated a little bit more progressive technology into the sport, and we actually have that information, and we have those tools to see how we can help it to push us to a point where perhaps the human mind is a limitation, you know. I have an industrial design background. That's what I studied at university. So I'm actually very fascinated by the technological side of life and the sport. And I do truly believe that this is fundamental for the advancement of us in the sport. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on that. I do have something that I'm working on right now with my company. I've formed a tech startup with my partners, and we have something that's going to be very, very exciting. Hopefully we'll be able to present that pretty soon. That's what we're working on, and this could pretty much give you an insight into how having access to information can help us to change the game fundamentally.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question. So if anybody has a question, put it in the public chat.
This would be a cool thing for us to do also, like at some point also, like imagine the concept of taking like this really interesting interaction that we had now in a virtual space. It would be a really interesting thing to share in like a real kind of environment where we can have the very similar format of just getting to know each other, and then some skydiving around it too, you know. So putting a bit of the theory into a practical application. So thank you guys for having me so far, and for stimulating me with some really cool questions. There was seriously some good ones, and once again, it gives me a little bit of insight as to who is on the other side of this webinar, and I hope we can create some space to do some skydiving around it too.
Cool, Will, thanks very much. Thank you for your time. I know you had to leave the beautiful mountain to get down to your computer. No, seriously, thanks again. For me, it was a lot of information, some things that I already knew or suspected, but it's nice to hear from a pro. And I got some additional tips as well, so we'll definitely be using that with my team.
Good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you very much once again for having me, and I look forward to meeting you guys in the not too distant future, and we can do some skydiving and keep on chatting. And I look forward to sharing this webinar online too, because I think it's been pretty interesting.
So thanks again, Will, and thanks to our viewers for the questions. And hopefully see you next time in 2 weeks. That's with Gary Smith for FS, same subject, how to train. And yeah, Will, hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.